Derry, it's very late on the Friday, the 7th of August 2020, and I'm just about to start the upgrade of Agata's bicycle, or I should say repair of Agata's bicycle. So it's actually fully functioning at the moment, but we've actually replaced the rear cassette, which fell apart. And because of that, we are going to change the front chain wheel here, because the ratio is now too difficult to pedal on our British roads. So I've ordered a Dura Ace chain wheel, which is surprisingly cheap. Since the whole crank set costs about a couple of £100, I was pretty surprised that the cost of a new 36 tooth wheel, Dura Ace standard, is only about £30. That's a positive situation. And following on from that, we thought we'd also, for preventative maintenance reasons, we're going to change the bottom bracket and the chain. Now, if you know anything about bicycles, you know that the number of bottom bracket standards is more or less infinite. And I think this bottom bracket doesn't have the standard Shimano bottom bracket fitting. I think it's a bigger fitting, and I think there's some sort of shim that goes in there to reduce it down to the Shimano bottom bracket. But to me, it looks like the Shimano bottom bracket is in there. So hopefully it can unscrew, because it's not a push fit, it's a screw fit. So hopefully it can unscrew, and we'll put the new bottom bracket in. So the sequence of operations is going to be, how do we actually fit the chain wheel? And the thoughts are, in order to get to this chain wheel here, I probably will take this crank arm off, and then the whole of this assembly will slide out that way. And then I'll be able to see if the bottom bracket can come out, hopefully yes. I'll then take the chain off, and I'm going to fit a SRAM chain on with a quick release. Now the old Dura Ace chain didn't have a quick release. I can't remember if I've changed this chain or not, but the important thing to note is that I'm going to make the chain the same length as the old chain. I'll check before I do that it really can't be shortened. I'm a big fan of shortening chains so that they're lighter, but my very good friend Pierre has very professionally advised me I have to watch out what I'm doing, because a shorter chain is not necessarily a better chain. I have to make sure it's the right length so that when the chain is at the top of its travel here, so you can imagine when the strongest tension is going to be when you have on a big chain wheel at the front and the biggest gear at the back. That's going to be the maximum dimension, and that's going to pull this rear mechanism here this way. So you have to make sure that when this is pulled this way, it's not in some ludicrous angle that might even bash into something. It needs to be at a decent angle. So I think that's the determining factor, although I would say no one ever cycles with a big cog here and a big cog here. That would be crazy. So I might step it down a few notches at the back and see what's going on. Okay, Derry, I've waffled on long enough. I can't put it off anymore. I actually have to do some work and attend to the my assistant, who's meowing rather strongly. Okay, let's see how it goes. Derry, okay, it's part two. I've actually started some work on Agata's bicycle, and I've got a decent amount of the way, and it's not even midnight yet. So let's see how far we've got. So the first thing to note is that I've actually got the front crank out, and it's sitting down here. And you'll notice that the Shimano bottom bracket, which is here, sits inside a sleeve which has been put into the bottom of this frame, because this frame, so this is the sleeve here, as you can see, and that's because this actual bottom bracket for this Ribble R872 bicycle is not designed to take the Shimano bottom bracket, and this is some kind of sleeve and a screw thread here. So with that gubbins installed, I can take a regular Shimano bottom bracket. I believe there's only one. This is one I happen to have in my spare tools collection. I'm going to stick it in there. I would say that whilst there is great compatibility for the Shimano bottom bracket series, once I fit this I will order another one. Probably up to 9100 now, I guess, for bottom brackets, not 9000 as this Dura Ace one is. Again, bottom brackets are something that is cheap as chips, so I would always recommend you change it as long as you can get it out and you've got the special tools to get the edges off. I'm scrubbing for the special tool. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, here it is in front of my nose. Yes, this is the special tool, and using this you can get the edges away from the frame. I'll also say that I've taken the chain off. I've got a reasonably professional chain removal tool. I've laid the chain out here, and that's because the new chain is going to be exactly the same length as the old chain. I've checked when we're on the large cog at the front and almost the largest cog at the back, the position of this changer, and it's not in an obscene position. So I don't see that there's any benefit in shortening the chain. I shall leave it as the length as it is. And don't forget, this cassette is smaller than before, so in other words, the angle here is less than the angle it would have been, let's say, with a larger ratioed cassette at the back. It would have been like there. So yeah, I'm leaving it as is. The next step is to fit the smaller chain wheel, which is here. So now I've got the front chain wheel off, I shall disassemble this, give it a good old clean. I use WD-40 for cleaning, by the way. It makes an excellent cleaner as well as a lubricant. Stick the new chain wheel on, then I'm going to stick the new bottom bracket on, and then after I put that back, it'll be the minging, moaning, putting the chain on situation, which I really hate. Okay, let's get to it. Diary, we're on to the morning of Saturday, the 8th of August 2020. And we're looking at Agata's recently refurbished bicycle by me. So what have I replaced? Firstly, I've replaced the chainring here, the small inner chainring, so it's easier to pedal. Secondly, I've replaced the chain, that'll be here. And thirdly, I've replaced the bottom bracket, which is the mechanism that the crank sits on. But it's not been without its traumas. The first thing, which was a great and total surprise, was the fact that whilst Googling, I noticed that there is in fact a difference between in the Dura Ace range between Shimano Dura Ace bottom bracket English and Shimano Dura Ace bottom bracket Italian. So just to quickly go into bottom brackets, the bottom bracket, as I said, is the bit that sits inside the frame here and allows this crank to rotate through. And there are many different standards, as I alluded to before. This is, I think, on a BB30 standard, which means to say it's a wider hole here than the Shimano, and there's a special adapter that's pushed in which allows you to use the standard adapter. But which adapter? So I did a lot of Googling, and there's a one from 2011 which says all Ribble frames use a 68mm wide English Shimano component, but the other option is the Italian 70mm. So in other words, it's 2mm difference in the width. So the width is actually just slightly wider. You might have thought you could fit either, and it would just be slightly less threaded because you thread the two halves together. And in fact, I suspect that would probably work. But I never knew there was a difference. I'm pretty sure in the olden days there was an English/Italian bottom bracket, and that was it. There wasn't a difference in the width. I may be wrong about that, but I was always taught that the thread was the governing factor, and if the bottom bracket thread fitted, that was fine, and you got the right bottom bracket. Now it seems to be there's a finer distinction. Anyway, the good news was that the bottom bracket that I had in my cubby hole of spare components was an English Shimano Dura Ace, and what I took out, checked the component and checked the here's the bottom bracket that I took out. This is an English bottom bracket. So in the bicycle is an Shimano English bottom bracket, putting in a Shimano Dura Ace English bottom bracket. So I'm absolutely sure it's correct. That was the first hurdle. The other thing I hadn't considered was the fact that although I'd made the chain length the same, even though this cassette was slightly smaller here, it's the same tooth ratio 11 here. This is like a 25 and is slightly smaller. So at this end, the chain is going to be slacker than it was before. I'd quite forgotten the other end, which is when you've got the small, you're on the small cog here and the small cog here. And in that case, I think my assistant is coming for some assistanting. What would you like to say, baby? You got anything to say? Okay, that was always time for extra licking. So what I hadn't considered was the angle here with the chain when this diameter is slightly smaller. Let me see if I can show you what I mean. So let's spin this little baby up and change. So here we now have the situation. So what this situation is that this is the smallest cog on the front and the smallest cog on the back, and you can see this ludicrous angle that this derailleur is going through. So you really should never be on the smallest cog at the front and the smallest cog at the back. But let's supposing that you are, and what happens then with the chain, with the length that I had selected, was that this was actually touching. This was touching the actual derailleur here, messing everything up. So I had to shorten the chain. So then ensued an hour of delay where I had to open the quick link and note to Shimona and everyone, it's not when you say quick link, I think I can basically sue on that definition of the word quick link. I managed to get the quick link apart. I shortened the chain by a couple of links and put it back together again. So now you see everything is working absolutely fine and dandy. And so all the components have been changed. We're going to go out on a test, well, Agata will go out on a test cycle soon. I'd just like to finish by saying how much did all this servicing cost, and the answer is it is about under £100, and the cost of my labour, which is £0. So for the under £100, we've changed the chain ring, we've changed the chain and the bottom bracket, and previously I changed the cassette. That's about a £200 item. So all in all, it's about a £300 change to this bicycle. And again, all is well. I can't stress the importance of preventative maintenance enough. In other words, don't wait till things break down whenever possible. And when things do go wrong, such as our rear cassette, we change these are the components just to be on the safe side. Alright, Dari, thanks for watching. All is well, and Agata's bicycle is on the road again. Wonderful.